While I was doing research for my last video about Vladimir Putin, I came across some information regarding the Second Chechen War that I found really disturbing, and I decided to make a video about that. Hi, I'm Roland, and I welcome you to my next video in which I will be talking about the tragic history of Chechnya and focus on the events leading up to the Second Chechen War. Now, I'm not going to talk much about the wars in Chechnya. If you're interested, you can find lots of information on the internet, and I will post some links in the description below where you can find a lot more details. For those of you not familiar with the history of Chechnya, like I was, let me just very briefly give you some background information on Chechnya and the events leading up to the Second Chechen War. The Islamic region of Chechnya was annexed to be part of the Soviet Union in 1922. During World War II, the entire Chechen people were deported in an act of ethnic cleansing, during which between 100,000 and 200,000 died. Those who survived this genocide were allowed to return to their native lands in 1957, after the new Soviet authorities under Nikita Khrushchev reversed many of Stalin's policies. After the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991, Chechnya declared independence. However, the Russian Federation under Boris Yeltsin argued that Chechnya did not have a right under the Soviet constitution to secede. The First Chechen War took place from 1994 to 1996, when Russian forces unsuccessfully attempted to regain control over Chechnya, resulting in Boris Yeltsin declaring a ceasefire in 1996 and signing a peace treaty a year later that saw a withdrawal of Russian forces. Because of the virtually destroyed economy and infrastructure, the country remained in a state of chaos in the following years, and lawlessness, political violence, and religious extremism reigned. Chechen separatist groups controlled increasing areas of the country and repeatedly launched attacks in Russia. A series of attacks officially attributed to Chechen separatists by the Russian authorities were the Russian apartment bombings, a series of explosions that hit 4 apartment blocks in the Russian cities of Buyansk, Moscow, and Volgodonsk. The bombings occurred between September 4 and 16, 1999, killing more than 300, injuring more than 1,000, and spreading a wave of fear across the country. The bombings are shrouded in controversies and contradictions, and I will point out some of them later. What really caught my attention is the Ryazan incident, which occurred 1 week after the bombing in Volgodonsk. In the evening of September 22, 1999, a resident of an apartment building in the Russian city of Ryazan noticed 2 suspicious men carrying bags into the basement from a car. He alerted the police, but when they arrived, the men were gone. In the basement, they found 3 bags of white powder with a detonator attached and a timer set to 5:30 a.m. The inhabitants of the apartment building were evacuated, and the city was sealed off by a massive police deployment. The following day, September 23rd, Vladimir Putin praised the vigilance of the inhabitants of Ryazan and called for the air bombing of the Chechen capital Grozny in response to the terrorism acts. This marked the beginning of the Second Chechen War. The same day, a suspicious phone call was intercepted and traced to local FSB officers, and the men who planted the bomb were identified and arrested. However, they showed their FSB identification cards and were soon released on orders from Moscow. On September 24, the official version of being a terrorist act changed, and FSB Director Nikolai Patrushev announced that the incident in Ryazan had been an anti-terror drill, and the bags found there contained only sugar. In my opinion, conducting an anti-terror exercise like this, at a time when there is widespread fear in the general population, is a really bad idea and doesn't make any sense. Anyway, let me get this straight. After the bags were discovered, the FSB admitted that their agents had put them there in order to conduct a security training exercise and that the bags contained only sugar. After this, Vladimir Putin ordered the air bombing of Grozny and started the Second Chechen War. So, Grozny was destroyed, and the Second Chechen War started because of 3 bags of sugar which were officially put there by the FSB. Another thing I find strange here is the timing. Putin ordered to attack Chechnya not after any of the actual bombings, but after the incident in Ryazan, where there was no real bomb, according to the official version. As I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of controversies surrounding the apartment bombings generally and the Ryazan incident in particular, and I would like to mention a few here. On September 13, 1999, Russian Duma Speaker Gennady Zeleznov made an announcement in the Duma, the Russian parliament, about receiving a report that another bombing had just happened in the city of Volgodonsk. However, the bombing in Volgodonsk happened 3 days later, on September 16th. There was never an official inquiry into why he knew 3 days before that the bombing would take place, and why there was no preventative action taken. In March 2000, 2 motions for a parliamentary investigation of the bombings were rejected by the State Duma, and an independent public commission chaired by Duma Deputy Sergei Kovalev was rendered ineffective because of government refusal to respond to its inquiries. Sometime later in the Duma, the pro-Kremlin party Unity voted to seal all materials related to the Ryazan incident for the next 75 years and forbade an investigation into what happened. I wonder why. Maybe someone is trying to hide something. On top of that, 2 key members of the Kovalev Commission died in 2003 in apparent assassinations, and the Commission's lawyer and investigator, Mikhail Teprashkin, was arrested and served 4 years in prison for revealing state secrets. In the fall of 2006, Anna Politkovskaya, who had investigated Russian involvement in Chechnya, was assassinated, and former FSB agent Alexander Litvinenko, who defected and blamed the FSB for the bombings, was poisoned and killed in London 2 months later. Do I smell the rat? Instead of conducting an official independent investigation, the Russian authorities kept blaming the bombings on Chechen terrorists, although their guilt was never conclusively proven, and Chechen militants repeatedly denied responsibility. Regarding the Russian invasion of the Ukraine, I've heard a lot of people say, what about the illegal invasion of Iraq by the US-led coalition in 2003 based on false accusations by the Bush administration? Yes, that was really a deplorable act, and it was condemned by the United Nations. But it seems that Russia did a similar appalling false flag operation 4 years earlier in 1999 to justify starting the Second Chechen War. And the story doesn't end here. I hope you found this video interesting. If so, please hit the like button and subscribe to get notified when I release my next video, where I will speak about some more disturbing information related to the apartment bombings and the Second Chechen War. Thank you for watching, and bye bye.